13, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
I sat on the sidelines with all with access to the 15 billion, maybe by now it's $17 billion in financing that can be made available. Okay, and it's still there today, and it's such a pity to not be able to deliver it. And it's because, little things like, a few $100,000 here and there, just nobody comes out of pocket to make that available at the very theoretical level that it must be done prior to being able to bring all these factors together. And all those parties like engineering firms and things like that would need to, that are the logical people to advance that, they don't. And I didn't realize that they're just, I think when we were younger, well, I guess from our perspectives, being younger, some people did institute their visions, and those are the things that continued. And I thought people were watching out over the world a little bit more, but actually, it turns out that there's very little of that. It's all for different interests.
So basically, you're saying the date is 1775, 1776. And the French are ready to come to our aid with boats and everything, but we're not getting it together to go meet in Philadelphia and draw up our Declaration of Independence. And we're not ready to dig in our pockets, us, the 55 founders, and we can't put a little cash to be able to raise some money for Washington's army. And
that's right.
We're waiting for someone else to pay for Washington's army.
That's right.
Even though the French, we just have to have a standing army and the French will come to our rescue.
It's the development of a new economic continent. It's similar to the discovery of Columbus of America, because electricity is just one aspect that happens to be the trigger that starts the process. But, as soon as you do that, you talk about asteroid mining of mineral resources, you start talking about manufacturing of computer chips in a low-gravity environment, which makes them, 10,000 times more powerful. You're talking about, all sorts of things that this here pushes its way into that will be much grander than anything else that we're talking about, and it will end up dominating the world-size economy, because the fact is that, a chip created without the hampering effects of terrestrial gravity is just much more powerful. We're talking about, I don't know, it's thousands of times more powerful than what we are able to create on Earth. But for that, you need the energy. For that, you need the infrastructure to get the flights up there. For that, you need everything to go. Everything that somebody out there may have thought was what they were talking about when the Americas were discovered. Think about it.
And even back then, you're talking about someone who could have, let's just say Spain, they could either build a ship and go down to Africa and bring stuff back, or they could build probably a better ship. They'd have to invest in different technology in order to get across the Atlantic, and there's some risk involved, and
I like the way Columbus did it, and I actually followed the way he did it and the way he financed it. That's why I know that the whole aspect of the financing works. It's exactly the same ratios as Columbus required, and I said that works.
Very little startup from the feds, and mostly
there was no startup from the feds. It was Queen Isabella who basically, while he was feeling rejected, ended up providing. It's pittance. It was pittance in terms of money, but it's if you don't have it, you don't have it. It is fundamentally just education, getting the right.
I have been an advocate of baseload
good space-based solar power for about 20 years, and I worked with all the Apollo and shuttle engineers and all the national laboratories and many of these conferences, and we have put together a mechanism to take advantage of the largest fusion plant in our universe, which is our sun, to collect its energy in a geosynchronous orbit around Earth and beam it down to consumption centers here on Earth. And there are lots of logistical issues that needed to be had to be taken advantage of before the engineering could be done. But the first study of the engineering was completed about 10 years ago. Actually, now it's more like 25 years ago. And it showed the feasibility, and all of that just needs to be updated now that the legal and financial issues have all been addressed. But it's a long slog, but it's very exciting because it will capture energy there and basically take us off the reliance of fossil fuels.
But how big a collector have you got in geosynchronous? What area is it?
It's about the size of the Grand Coulee Dam here in the United States, so it's pretty damn big. But it's built in modules, so it's just one attached after the other. The financing of all that is straightforward. The part that still needs simultaneous development is the creation of the reusable launch vehicles that will actually take the material up, the payload up, and bring it to low Earth orbit, and then slowly push it up to geosynchronous.
Right. Okay.
So it's all done. On paper, it's a question of which parts start the process off, and it's quite exciting because it'll change. It will. Although it's a scientific and energy effort, it's really space exploration through exploitation of space-based resources. It creates a whole new economic continent and a whole new base where things get studied. And the big things that I'll just mention to you again, because you're my past physics teacher, is building materials in space in low gravity environment allows the molecular structure to be that much more robust and exact that it allows the power of, for instance, computer chips to increase by 10,000-fold versus what can be created in a terrestrial environment where you can't get rid of the gravity pull that is associated with that manufacturing process.
Right. Yes, and because when you've got the gravitational situation, any sort of forces acting on the things you're growing it are going to be sources of extra influences on the thing, so it doesn't grow as you want it to grow.
It crushes it. One of my daughters had an internship with NASA, and we started to look at all the pictures of what she was filing. So NASA has available pictures of molecular structures, and you can measure out how the crystalline structures of metals actually shows up and how it gets affected and not affected in terrestrial versus non-terrestrial environments.